Welcome to Seekers and Shifters, where we talk to the world's foremost experts in personal growth and development and ask them everything we really want to know. Hey there, Seekers and Shifters. It is your girl, Michelle, and I am here with one of my besties, Moe Poole. I'm so excited to have you here, Mo. Do you want to introduce yourself to our watchers and listeners?
Yes, I am so excited to be here as well. I just got to say that. I am Moe Poole, your favorite queer mompreneur and mindset coach by night, mom by day.
or vice versa, or whatever.
Or whatever flows, right.
A fellow mompreneur, a fellow mindset coach, and Mo and I worked together for several years, so we know each other very well. And fun fact, Mo is the one who got me into NLP originally. Well, actually, here's how this went. I always wanted to learn NLP. Mo was working with me at the time. She just said innocently on an admin call one week, "Hey, I'm going to be gone later in the month because I'm going to an NLP training for my birthday. My friend's taking me." And I said, "I'm going to invite myself on your birthday because I always wanted to learn NLP." And then we were kind of off to the races from there. Is that how you remember it? That was
That is impressively exactly how I remember it. And that's something special when two people share NIR that way. So yeah, that's how this magic, I guess, kind of started sparkling, and it was so fantastic.
Yeah. And I mean, like going back from that, I mean, we originally met when Mo was one of my clients. And then I just saw how special she was and the energy that she had and said, "Can you come coach for us?" And now Mo's coaching career is taking all the way off. Do you want to talk about a little bit about how you coach, what your specialty is, where your expertise is for folks listening?
Yeah. So my background is in the science of psychology and applied behavioral analysis, a little bit of childhood development, NLP, and all those things. So I really love to use that foundation and nerd out on the brain, programming, and take that into my coaching to help people identify and remove some really sticky blocks. And I serve queer and questioning teens from my heart. And I serve with my armor right now a lot of women who are trying to heal themselves in relationships or personal development. So I kind of am a coach anybody, anytime, anywhere type of person, because that's how I live my life. But those are the specialties that I am currently in and loving so much.
Well, I think one of the things, and we always talk about this about coaching, is that ostensibly people are getting into it from different angles. Is business coaching? Is it relationship coaching? Is it fitness coaching, health coaching, something like that? But really at the fundamental level, all coaches are doing the same thing, which is helping people set goals and then figure out how to reach those goals. And then you and I have some cool tricks, up our sleeves that range a whole lot of modalities to help people do that. But, when you were working with me, we were coaching entrepreneurs. You're taking the exact same skills into a different level, a different set of people. But how is it the same? How is it different for you?
So the similarities are, what the core, I don't want to say wounds, right? What the core wounds are that they're healing. Lots of similarities once we get at the root of it. Very common to have something to do with not being good enough, right? Or some level of inadequacy. And it boils down to that. The differences and the nuances I find tend to come out as the tree branches off and what it looks like in each one's individual's life. So as an entrepreneur, it's really going to be evident in how they are executing or not in their business or in their goals or in whatever their mission is. In a relationship, it's going to look different in how they're showing up in the communication a lot or how the sex and intimacy is going, right? And children, there's going to be a lot of how they're relating to their peers. Lots of differences in how we can access them. So the languaging is different. The context is different. Again, framework and the tools are the same because ultimately it's helping them to become aware of themselves enough to highlight what's going on and then use all your bag to step them through really healing those things and moving through it.
Absolutely. Well, or we frame it sometimes as there's lots of different symptoms that present, but it's really like the root cause is the same. You talk about wounds, you talk about insecurity, right? It takes a while just when you start coaching somebody, sometimes even to get to that place, right? And I can always tell who's done a lot of therapy, who's done a lot of mindset work coming in, because they might be faster to get there. They might, somebody might even come in and say like, here's my core wounds and vulnerabilities if they've done a lot of work. Or if they haven't done a lot of work, it might take a while to even get there, because there has to be this sense of safety created first. One of the things that I have always loved about you and marveled at, even how people will pick up on it, like across huge ballrooms full of people where people don't even know you, is that your just presence creates a sense of safety, right? The rest of us have to kind of work it, like creating rapport, helping people feel safe, or kind of learn that skill. Mo just kind of got it naturally. I think you even told me one time that people started telling you their problems when you were like 8 or 9 years old, because you kind of have that about. What do you think it is about you that creates an automatic sense of safety, or where people feel comfortable with you?
So my kind of ethereal answer is, this is my life's purpose. This is my gift and what I am absolutely gifted with to do. Now, into the world, how I think that developed is I have a huge level of empathy, and I myself have had to heal through an extraordinary amount of pain. And when you do that, it can open up a big space of compassion. And so I'm able to see through that lens, and I must obviously like project that. I literally do not look at people in the world the same way. And then we'll sprinkle on my little neurodivergency onto that. And I think it's just a perfect storm for this beacon of, hey, everyone, it's over here. It's so cool. I'd say, let's talk.
Being a little weird helps, right? Because I think if you're perfect and polished and like you're just wearing like a normal boring suit, or like that's armor too, right? That presentation is armor, because people, you're not really showing yourself, you're not really showing you. If you know Mo loves SpongeBob. Mo is always wearing some type of SpongeBob motif. Are you wearing SpongeBob right now?
It is. Like it's SpongeBob and Patrick. Oh,
is it sponge?
That's right.
It's a sponge. I don't want to say it. Right. But it's like, I mean, even that, right? Like that kind of thing opens people up to you, because they say, oh, that person not only has an interesting enough personality that they're willing to wear something like that, but they feel comfortable enough with who they are, that they're going to kind of wear it out and invite conversation about it. And I'm sure people come up to you all the time and say, oh, SpongeBob, or, just like whether, it's in a coaching context or not. So I love that. Like, I love not only how comfortable you are with yourself, but how comfortable you are with expressing that, and how it allows people to approach you, and how comfortable you are kind of bringing people into your space that way. I think there's a lot that a lot of us could learn from that. An
intentional intention to, shine your light, because it inadvertently gives others permission to do the same and to really be the change that I wish to see. And so I set that intention to be like so 100% myself in any moment that I can. Because it's that I find that helps. And when I wasn't there, that's what helped me. We all love those bold people. We all love that person that's going to get out of line first, so then we all can leave too. Or that person's going to raise their hand first and just say that thing, so I can say what has been on my mind as well. And I started picking up on that as a culture, how people are so drawn to that. And it was just like, I want to be that change. I want to be that vulnerable and that's safe within me, that I could be that for other people. So yeah, thanks for saying that, because it's actually important to me.
No, it's so beautiful, and it's really the crux of why we're doing this podcast, Seekers and Shifters, why we're doing Seekers Club, is really an exercise in vulnerability in terms of coming out as woo-woo or weird or spiritual students of the universe, seekers, shifters. And for a lot of us, that's kind of a newer presentation, or something that maybe we felt for a long time but haven't spoken super publicly about. And certainly in Seekers Club, it is the idea is that a bunch of people can explore that together in a safe space, because sometimes it doesn't feel safe to be who you are. Obviously, we talk about that from a queer angle. There's all kinds of angles that we can talk about that from, right? But how did you first get comfortable being who you are? I mean, aside from just wanting to be.
When you say first, I'll go with what came at the top of my mind, because, I think at any given moment, if we're on this path, if you're listening to this and you're here, I would imagine that you've been on this path for a while. And so early on, all of my degrees in psychology and all that were really to understand myself better, to figure out depression and all these things I was experiencing. But a pivotal moment that's just on my timeline, you're actually such a big part of that. When I started the BGSD program as a client, I had my first mindset call, and I had never done anything like that before. And it really highlighted to me that I was not as good at vulnerability as I thought. And it's so, brilliant and genius. And I can talk about how awesome and important it is to really put that type of work in a program when you're talking about business. But it was really pivotal to me, because I'm like, you know what? Everybody talks to me about anything all the time. I got vulnerability nailed. I am the most vulnerable person I know. And then I got on that coaching call and I started crying, and I had a meltdown because I was crying in front of someone. And I was like, I do not like this. This is not okay with me. And she's like, yeah, maybe we have some work to do with vulnerability, right? And it was like a really big aha moment that activated and motivated me to dig into it. And I kind of started from there. We talked about levels on a baseboard as a DJ, where you're just playing with the levels. And that was the first idea where I'm like, oh, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. I don't have to go and be super intimate in love with everyone to be vulnerable. And I don't have to have this stranger danger and be completely cut off. So I started then just exploring times where I wouldn't normally speak, and maybe I'm going to speak to 5 strangers today. Started out really small. I graduated to small talk, and I had such a successful conversation with someone in a grocery store about the weather, and it was like the best thing ever. And then I got into Brene Brown's book, The Power of Vulnerability, and that started just really opening up more. And I was just in love and committed to nailing this thing, because I knew it was a block and a challenge, and it was just in between everything. In that course, I realized I had done all the hard work. I had put together the things and did all the litigious work and created everything. I did none of the vulnerable stuff. I was not in front of anyone. No one knew about anything that I was doing. And so that was a huge, like I said, just pivotal moment for me that got me on a different trajectory in the work I was doing. I obviously had hit a block and was just working really hard in one direction. And that really shifted things and allowed me to look at myself in a different way, to start small. Whoa, did I answer that?
You did. Well, you did. And I love talking about vulnerability, because as you know, it's something that I preach and try to practice radically with my friends, in my relationships, even with my kids, that's the hardest one for me, was learning how to be vulnerable with my kids, show them it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad. It's not okay to express that in certain ways, right? But it's okay to say I'm angry, or I feel frustrated, or even to let them see me cry. It took me years and years and years of being a mom before I could let my kids see me cry, or even see me angry. I was afraid of that. I would go hide in my room, rather than have them see me angry, or rather than risk, yelling at them or saying a harsh word or doing something damaging with my anger. It took me a while to get there. I am radically vulnerable at work, which is not a normal thing for a boss to be. And some people are into that and some people aren't. Sometimes that confuses or upsets people. And I think that's the interesting / scary thing about vulnerability is that often when we're vulnerable all the time, right? We always say it's hard to be soft. Often when we're vulnerable all the time, it freaks some people out. Other people who aren't ready to be vulnerable yet might take that as some kind of an affront or, oh my gosh, that's too much, or you're freaking me out. Because not only does it give people permission to be vulnerable, other people, but it also kind of challenges other people to meet you where you're at with vulnerability. And they might not be ready to do that. So I think, in a one-on-one conversation, we can adjust pretty easily. Like, oh no, I feel like I might be oversharing right now. And so let me walk it back because this person doesn't want to go there and I want to be respectful of where they want to be conversationally. Most of us with, that have developed our social skills over time, we can do that. Where it gets weird and where it gets hard is now when I'm being public, on social media, something like this, when I'm talking about my life, I don't have that immediate feedback, right? Like if somebody's watching or listening to this, if they're reading something that I wrote on Facebook, or if they're looking at an Instagram post or a video, I don't have that feedback of seeing the look in their eyes or seeing how they're reacting to it. And I know, with thousands of people, there's going to be thousands of different reactions. Some people are like, oh my God, thank you for sharing. You've allowed me to be vulnerable today. And some people are like, wow, she's a lot. So part of being vulnerable to me is being okay with there's going to be a range of reactions to my vulnerability. And I can't be constantly adjusting my level for everyone else, like in a one-to-many kind of way. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I love that distinction because I think we can sometimes speak to this very kind of, empowering, euphoric space of vulnerability, like we're all trying to get to. And I love that distinction that vulnerability in and of itself is not one look or one way. It's all the things. And it is exactly what you said. It's showing up. It's so Brene Brown says authenticity, courage, and connection. And so it's showing up authentic. And that means wherever I'm at in the moment, and there is a perceived risk that I may or may not be accepted in that state. And I'm showing up that way anyway and saying I'm fantastic anyway. And what do we need to work on this and really staying connected? And so I think that's right. That is where the challenge can be because everyone is not on that same level. And that's kind of the epitome of when vulnerability is challenging in a different way. It's when it's hard personally, not just hard on the external, but it can get really, really underneath and just activate all of that insecurity, all of the second guessing, the syndromes, imposter, and whatever. So yeah, cool distinction to make. And that is exactly right. That is vulnerability 101, is that everyone may not like it and you're still doing it anyway. And it's important to me. I'm not just doing it. I'm not just doing that. I'm also being okay with myself if people don't like it. That's being vulnerable. I'm okay with me, even if you don't like it. And I'm going to still stay connected. And that's the tricky part, is finding these boundaries for us that allow for protection and connection. Because it's easy to disconnect when it feels too much. It's like, no, I cannot interact with you. Yeah, really good and important distinction.
Well, and I think what's coming up for me now, because when we talk about authenticity, right, and we know how important it is to be authentic. Also, we're both students and practitioners, master practitioners of NLP. NLP, one of the fundamental tenets is about being a flexible communicator. And it's the more flexible your communication can be, the more effective you are. And that's really about stepping into somebody else's frame of the world and their communication and trying to communicate with them in the way that they see things, in the way that they feel things, the way that they hear things, the way that they receive information, so that you can get through to them. And so to me, that's always been an interesting challenge. How do I stay authentic to me while also trying to communicate in the way that is flexible, that is best going to get through to them, and at what point in that transition do I lose my authenticity, if at all? I love your thoughts on that.
See, this is where I think communication is essential. I don't think that there's a point in which I have to compromise my authenticity or abandon my intent in connecting with you. But authentic means, you know what? I'm really wanting to connect with you right now, and I'm finding it very challenging. And it looks this way, but it could be something that's going on with me. So let me just take a pause. Let me take a step back. And it's just those extra words that, one, can be hard to access when we're in that state. All that cortisol is rushing and your conscious brain is already shutting down. So we're kind of just in protective mode anyway. It can be hard to find those words. This is where the work and the practice and why it's important to connect to your communication and work that out before you get to that point. Because it is so important to stay authentic, and you don't want to feel like you have to compromise or blow up, right? I don't want to shrink or puff up. I just want to stand my sacred ground. It's another Brene Brown quote from that book. And so I think about what that sacred ground looks like or means to me. And that's just like, no, hey, I'm not going to go there because my intention is to just connect with you. And I am feeling and noticing that it's not happening. So I want to let you know that I want to communicate. And that's being vulnerable again. That's saying, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why this isn't working. I want it to be better though. And it's not. And by that point, we're usually in defense, like we're defensive, or we're criticizing, or we're stonewalling someone, or we're holding them or ourselves in contempt. It's like these four horsemen. So yeah, I think communication skills become pertinent in those types of scenarios.
Well, when you talk about, the defensive, but we get in and it's like we all get guilty of it, even people that have done tons of this work, because you get triggered and you have a physiological response to that trigger. And sometimes you have the presence of mind to say, hey, I'm triggered right now. I need a second, or just, I need to breathe, or I need to do a release technique before we continue the conversation. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just start to react and you get your stuff. And then, maybe it might be minutes or hours later, or for some people, never later, where you go, well, I was really triggered. And because of that, I kind of acted in a way, or I spoke in a way that wouldn't have been my choice if I had been able to like calm down before that. So I think that's important to recognize when we talk about communication skills. It's just like, it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to get triggered and to come back later and say, please forgive me. That's not how I wanted to say that. That's not what I meant. And I love your radical vulnerability suggestion that, hey, this isn't going the way I want it to go, right? If you think about any kind of argument or fight, it really is an attempt at connection, because if you didn't want to connect or get on the same page, you wouldn't be in the fight. You wouldn't be in the argument. And that's, anything from with your partner or your kids, all the way to like somebody on the internet. Like clearly there's you want to be heard, or you want to connect, or you want to have a back and forth, because if you didn't, you just would ignore the whole thing. Right. And I think people forget that. I think they think about, I'm trying to be right. Right. Or anybody, we always joke around and say, anyone who doesn't agree with me is either stupid or they're an asshole. Well, that's how it feels when you think that your truth is the truth. Once you realize that everybody else has a truth and that their truth is different than yours and that their perspective is a little bit different than yours, then it starts to open up. Then you start asking questions like, am I stupid? Am I the asshole? And then you get to a level of, well, yes and no. We all are, none of us are. It's more complicated than that, right?
Respect everybody's model of the world, right? It's like really getting that. And a part of that is where it's the culture. It's like having things the same makes us feel safe. And so we're now defending that safety. And that's what's being threatened oftentimes in those moments where you did something out of context to me, right? Out of what I was about, or out of context to me. And it's that the more we are the same, the better we are. So accepting diversity on so many levels is It's a hard thing to do. It does. It actually challenges your security, your security, your safety. So yeah, I think that's right. I don't even know now where I was going with that, but I love that comment.
Well, it does threaten your safety, right? It's like it's something different, something out of context, something I'm not used to. That's just biological, right? Of course, that's going to threaten our safety when something's different and something's, unexpected. That's going to, it's either going to be thrilling and exciting, or it's going to be anxiety provoking and even into like, oh, I need to protect myself. Kind of depending on what it is. Those are physiologically very similar responses, but depending on the context, we might take it one way or the other. And so we get these situations where before we've done a lot of this work, it feels like if I have a reaction, if I'm triggered, it's because you did this to me. You made me feel this way. And you'll hear, if you remember like teenage arguments or people that are, less maybe emotionally mature, you did this to me. You made me angry. And that's even a hallmark of an abuser. Like, you made me abuse you, right? Because you triggered me, and then I couldn't help what happened after that. Instead of, once we start to do some work, right, it turns into, I received it this way. It felt like this to me. When this happened, when you said this, when you did this, it felt like this to me, right? And that's why we start, even in like couples therapy or whatever, with our I statements. It's a much more empowering stance when you can get into, how did I receive that and why? What did that light up for me, right? And it comes back to the core wounds.
Yeah. That victim role is the protector. And it does, you said that word empower. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, it takes a lot to step into your power, the power of your choice. And I'm going to use this word bred, like we're bred away from that. The minute we come into the planet, someone's telling you that someone else knows better than you. Someone's telling you that there is this dichotomy of something that's right or wrong or good or bad, and you fall either on the left or right of that. And so despite your knowing, you're so fully equipped. And I say, like a whole apple tree is inside of an apple seed, right? You're so whole and complete. And we get led away from ourself, from our knowing, from our amazing instincts that, by the way, don't ever lie to you. Literally don't ever lie. And so we get just conditioned into seeking these external validations and answers. So that puts us in a victim state. And we are, to a degree, when we're younger, when we get those wounds, it is someone's job to protect us or take care of us. We can't take our stick and handkerchief, most of us. Like, I tried it a couple times. It didn't do anything, and like run away or do the thing, find a new family. That doesn't work. And so that version of us is still waiting on someone to come save us. And it's like we get now, and the chains are still on, but they're not locked anymore, and the warden's gone. But you just don't realize that. Like, that inner child is still very, very much afraid and wounded. And so I'm finding that, yeah, it's easy to want to focus on giving other people the thing you want so you can get it back. It's easy to focus on wanting to fix the person in front of you. But as we are seeking and finding, the answer is you. That sounds like so hard. The answer is you. But the answer is healing that relationship with yourself first, because we've broken a lot of contracts with ourselves over the years. There's so many times where we let someone cross our boundaries, where we crossed our own boundaries, where we stonewalled ourselves, said that it wasn't that big of a deal when it really was a big deal. And so that relationship is severed, and that's the disconnect that we're projecting often onto other people, in my opinion.
Absolutely. You know what I was thinking about when you were talking about that is how humans are born so much more vulnerably than almost any other animal. And I can't remember the biological, it's something about the way, we're shaped, our uteruses are shaped or something. We can't hold babies as long as other animals. When you think about other animals, they're born being able to walk. It takes us a whole year plus. In fact, we're so, we're so sort of undeveloped when we're born that they even call those first 3 months like the fourth trimester, because babies can't even really see straight or whatever, like that first 3 months. But it really takes like a year of human development for human babies to get to where other babies are, like elephants or cats or whatever, like the second they're born. And so we have this vulnerability immediately baked into our psyche, right? Because there's just no control for like a significant portion of the beginning of your life. You have degrees in this, so you tell me.
No, that's exactly right. And when you were saying that, I'm thinking, okay, so with that being true, our caregivers, like hugely impactful. And many of us are just victims of poor parenting to some degree or another, not their fault, but the times. And so in that, where we're developing 0 to 7 years old, we're developing, and some studies say like now between 7 and 9. The point is, you have no context of life and you're making these really core, big, important decisions. And our caregivers have been trained to treat babies like they don't know anything and then treat adults like they're supposed to know everything, but they never gave that to the child that turned into that adult. And it's just this very interesting phenomena that is just screaming to me more and more. It's like, we know the importance of that first, the developmental stages. We know the importance of it. But there's no curriculum or support for what's actually happening. We just have all of these frameworks and structures that we're trying to fit them into. So super, super, super big time. Parents just running amok in there as we're shopping and setting up our own homes. And we're so malleable, and it's just like, and we're imprinting. That's the phase. It's called imprinting. And so, like a newspaper in clay, everything you press upon, a little piece of that comes on you. And here we are, yay, unpacking all the stuff.
And it's your life's work to undo whatever your parents did. But what's so interesting about that to me is that you would also be screwed up if you had perfect parents. Like, and there's no such thing as perfect parents. So parents, we can all get off the hook because like there's no way to be a perfect parent. But if you hypothetically had perfect parents, you would also be messed up, right? It's like a bell curve of, you want enough. And as a parent, this is part of your job, right? Is to give your kids enough to move away from, to develop their own identity from. So even when we try to be, of course, as perfect as we can, when we screw up, it teaches our kids resilience. It allows them to develop their own identity. It develops as they get into their teens and 20s, this sense of, here's the ways I admire my parents and I want to be like them, and the things I'm happy I got from them. And here's the things that I would do differently, or that I want to do differently and then especially when you become a parent, boy, does it bring up all that shit from however you were parented. You say, I want to keep this, I want to let this go. But that's important developmentally, right? So I don't know, Mo, where's the sweet spot between, giving your kids something to bounce off of and not being, not screwing them up too bad, do you think?
To me, it's about the intention, right? So as long as you, have that awareness that my goal is not to shield or protect them from grief or negative emotion or bad things. That's a big thing. And it's huge. It's like our instinct is to protect them. And a lot of times we're enabling them by trying to save them from their feelings. So I look at my role as helping her learn how to do her thing, like how to be human, learn how to manage and regulate your own emotions, learn about what's happening, what joy, what all these things are, without adding my own context. I will be plenty of challenge for her, but it'll be the challenge that she created, which should be more aligned with her growth and not something that I've did too soon or too late, not something that I've inflicted or gone from my own thing. It's like, I'm gonna hold space and let you challenge yourself, knowing that that's a part of it, and really observe how you're doing it and give my feedback like a coach would to a player on the team, without associating my full identity to this individual that's in front of me just because she looks, walks, and talks like me. She's not me. She's really her own person who is protected the same way I am, who has access to all the things that I do, all the power, all the information. So I actually don't feel as responsible for her as I think you could as a parent. I don't feel responsible for those things. My responsibility, again, is like her safety and helping her control and learn her avatar until she's out there on her own doing the thing. And yeah, I like to think of my role in that way, not as somebody who's responsible for making her into someone or not someone. I feel like that's done. I feel like that's her, like she is who she is. And I really want to foster and just grow her the way you would a plant or anything else that's its own thing. I want to fuel that. So I try to separate that. And I hear that identity association a lot, working with kids and their parents. I hear we had this old fashioned, like, you represent me, right? And so you can't be out acting like that, talking like that, walking like that. Look, you represent me. And you can kind of put the weight of the world on children, instead of just, who are you? Who are you? Oh, it's interesting. What do you like? Oh, okay. Well, let me show you a better way to do that. Oh, okay. Well, these are some things that work for me, but totally up to you. But I'm just telling you in my ear, that type of idea, without feeling responsible for every mistake she makes, or, owie, that happens. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, and again, like talking about, someone who's done a lot of their work and like what a healed parent looks like versus an unhealed parent, right? It's difficult for any parent because there's this transition from, you have a baby, you're literally having to, like, at first you're feeding them on your breast to mom, you're spoon feeding them all the way to, 18. They're basically an adult living in your house. And there's this gradual letting go, and consent starts to come more and more in, right? There's a time, certainly when they're small, where you do know better than they do, right? Like, what's going to happen if they stick a fork in an electrical outlet and they're 18 months old and they just want to see what, and you go, no, I know better than you in this situation. And then I think for some of us, it becomes hard to let go of that as they get older, where you start to say, hey, maybe they know what's better for themselves in this regard or that regard, all the way up to teenage years where, when my oldest son turned 17, I just said to him, okay, this is your trial adult year. Basically, like, as long as you're acting like an adult here, I'm going to treat you like an adult. You come and go as you please. You've got shelter, you've got food, you've got a safety net to start to learn to be an adult. And now that he's 18 and still at home for the summer, it's, you are an adult, like, I'm not, you're going to give me the same courtesy any adult would, which is, hey, you tell me if you're going to be gone all night or something like that. But I don't tell him he can or can't. I don't tell him what to do. It's at this point, hey, if you want my input, I'm here to give it. I'm probably not going to try to offer it even. I'm going to wait till I'm asked. Whereas with my 11-year-old, I'm probably going to offer it a little stronger, because there might be more things that I know, that he doesn't know. I don't think he knows that I know things that he doesn't know. You kind of have to build that out over time. I think when you come at parenting before you've done your work, or when you're unhealed, it does pull on that wound that you said of, like, you're a reflection of me, or you're a little mini me, especially if your biological mother, you literally made somebody in your body. It's difficult not to, you know what I'm talking about. And it's like, oh, we're not supposed to make that distinction, but I'm going to make that distinction. I'm sorry. Hopefully that doesn't offend anybody, but if it does, I'm sorry. I made you in my body. You feel like part of me biologically. You come out of my body, and now I'm supposed to treat you like a separate entity. That's a little bit of a mind fuck, especially at first. Because it does feel like you're mine, especially when it's like, I created you. It does feel like you're mine, and you have to start to transition out of that. If you don't transition out of that, it becomes that toxic relationship of, oh, you are a reflection of me, and everything you do reflects back on me. And so I wouldn't want people thinking this of me. So therefore you can't do that either, because then they're going to think that about me, or they're going to think that about my parenting. And then, I read this thing that just hit me in the heart the other day. It said, the closer someone is to us, the more we talk to them the way we talk to ourselves. And I was like, ooh. I was like, oh shit. Truth potato, right? We used to call that truth bomb.
Absolutely. And it's that, it's a piece of that that keeps me loving on myself so well. It keeps me really on top of my relationship with myself, is my care for her, is my love for her, because I know that. And I want to model excellence for her. I want to model that care for yourself. And so she knows, like, hey, outside of me, you are the most important person to me in my life. I want you to know that I come first to me because I want you to come first to you.
That's so beautiful. And I think that's so important. It's so easy to just put them ahead of ourselves. But then what are we doing? We're teaching them people pleasing. We're teaching them putting other people behind. We're teaching them bad boundaries. And so, yes, I have to come first to me, and then you're going to come.
And that's a hard thing to say.
So hard to say, and even harder to do, because I think the biological drive even is to put, obviously, like, I mean, ask almost any parent, they would say, oh yeah, I jump in front of a bullet for my kid in a heartbeat. I would kill for my kid. I would murder for my kid. I would do all these things because they're more important. I would go to jail for the rest of my life if I needed to, that's not even like a logical thought. That's just like back in so you have to bring that logical and say, what am I modeling when I walk around like that? That's where, that healing comes from. So much so that often when we're working with people who are just starting in mindset and they are parents, we will say things like, hey, what would you say to your child if they were in this situation that you're in right now? And then they start to realize how mean they're being to themselves because they would never talk to their kid the way they're talking to them. So, we bring that up. We highlight that on purpose to say, hey, there's some incongruency here between what you're modeling in terms of like your internal dialogue, which you think is just in your head, but it's really starting to come out. It's really starting to bleed out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I want to know just real quick, because I do think there are people that watch this and listen to this that are at the very beginning of their seeking journey. And if someone were to come to you and say, oh, Mo, you're so cool. I love your energy. I love all of this, and I'm just starting.
So two things came up for me. From where I started, right? Like my gut instinct is like, oh, well, this is where I started. And it was really starting to do things like this. I'm looking for information that resonates with me, and I'm starting to follow more people, and really just energy grows or energy flows, right? So really pulling more of that into my existence and my experience. My now self would be like, go to the coach, like just go straight, find someone who is aligned in the thing that you're wanting more of, and get a coach and an expert to help you figure that piece out. It's like, yeah, that's where I would jump and start. Knowing all that I know, I would start at the cheat line right there. But just beginning, if you're on that individual part and you're just not that comfortable yet because there's something in your mind thinking that you need to have something before you have a coach, it's not true. Or it must look a certain way, and that's not true. Then I would continue to gestate on and digest on the information that's really resonating, and knowing more and more, and building up from there. But ultimately, yeah, you want to find a trusted, trained, passionate, aligned professional that can really support you to getting to where you want to go. And this idea, it's like, we are so okay with going and having someone teach us how to cook, or having someone work on your car or show you what to do. It's like, we're cool with all of that. But oh my gosh, I don't want to go get help to know myself. It's like, I'm supposed to know already how to do that. Or we'll like invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in a home, or tens of thousands of dollars in a car, and take out a loan and pay on that loan for years and years, and maintenance that home and maintenance that car. But we don't want to do that for our personal development and our growth and the things that are important. And there's no way that stuff is more important than you. So starting with the information and building up to really investing in yourself and giving yourself the opportunity to grow in environments that are built
I love that answer. I do want to say for anyone that listening to that and say, well, that's easy for you to say you're coaches. Of course, you're saying that. Yes, we are. Yes, we're saying that. Yes, we have both spent lots and lots of money, tens into the hundreds of thousands of dollars on coaching, years and years, hours and hours, have had coaches, many coaches. We believe in this because we first invested in it. We got coached before we became both of us, right? And that's why we saw the power of it. That's why we became coaches eventually, is because we saw what can happen. And so absolutely co-sign that. Do get a coach. We're both coaches. Call us if you want to. Or there's many, many other coaches out there. And find who you click with. And the entry point, relationship, business, health, whatever, the coach is going to help you know yourself at the end of the day, underneath whatever that entry point is. What's going on with me, and why does it keep expressing symptomatically in these various ways? So absolutely. Mo, so great having you on the show. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I can always talk to you for hours and hours, but we are running out of time. Where can people find you if they want to talk to you, work with you, or know more about you?
I am on Facebook at Coach Moe. I am on Instagram at Poole Moe, POOLEMOE. And my email is thecoachmo@gmail. That's the with 2 E's and Mo with an E.
TAG, Coach, MOE.
Yeah, at gmail.com.
Yeah, Mo is amazing. So I hope, And if you want to engage in conversations like this with us at a deeper level, we are always hanging out in Seekers Club. Come find us, seekersclub.org. Hang out with us all day, every day, talking about all things personal growth, development, and weird woo-woo shit. So we would love to see you there. And with that, until next time, we'll see you next time. Bye.